is a kind of betrayal that doesn't begin with a kiss in the dark. It begins with a sweet smile, with a dinner prepared with so much love, it kills. Daniel was 40 years old and had the life he had always wanted. He was a veterinary surgeon, the owner of a small practice he had inherited from his father and turned into the most respected clinic. He rose early, treated animals from morning until evening, and came home each night to find Julia waiting for him, dinner already laid out upon the table. Julia, 37 years old, a teacher at the state school, with an easy smile and a gentle hand in the kitchen. They had been married for 12 quiet years. They had no children. They had Tobias. Tobias was a black German shepherd, 6 years old, rescued as a tiny abandoned puppy by Daniel during one long shift at the clinic. He slept faithfully at the foot of the bed. He waited by the front door whenever his master ran late. He could recognize the sound of that car from 2 whole streets away. For Daniel, that dog was far more than mere company. He was the only creature in the whole wide world who seemed to understand him without ever needing a single spoken word. Ricardo, Daniel's older brother, 41 years old, came round to the house almost every single week. He worked in sales, drifted between one job and the next, and since their father's death, he had depended financially on his younger brother. Daniel never once turned him away. He covered his rent, lent him the car, paid off his mounting debts. Ricardo thanked him with hearty pats on the back and long, lingering dinners at the couple's table. It was on one of those perfectly ordinary evenings that something began to shift. Tobias, always gentle, always obedient, let out a deep, low growl from his throat as Ricardo walked past the dining table. Daniel thought it strange. Julia laughed and said the dog was simply being fussy. Ricardo cracked a small joke about it, and the evening carried on as though nothing had happened at all. But the dog did not take his eyes off his brother-in-law for so much as a single second. And long after Ricardo had gone, Tobias remained standing there, staring fixedly at the closed front door, in total silence, like someone waiting patiently for the very worst to arrive. The exhaustion came first. Daniel began waking each morning with a heavy, foggy head, as though he had been drinking the night before, even though he had not touched a single drop of alcohol. In the middle of his shift, he would suddenly have to sit down. Sometimes small black spots floated across his vision whenever he bent forward to examine an animal on the table. He blamed it on too much work. He booked a checkup, postponed it 3 different times, and eventually forgot about it altogether. Julia noticed. Julia worried. Julia kept insisting that he needed to eat better, to rest more often, to let her take proper care of him. She prepared rich, hearty soups, fresh green juices, warm herbal teas just before bed. She served his plate with her own 2 hands and stayed there watching, patient and still, until the very last spoonful. Daniel thought it was beautiful. Daniel thought it was love. Ricardo began turning up at the house more and more often, 2 times a week, sometimes 3, often without warning. He always arrived at a time when Daniel was still tied up at the clinic, lingered for hours chatting with Julia in the kitchen, and slipped away again just before his brother came home. When Daniel finally walked through the front door, the house smelled of freshly brewed coffee, and Julia had that particular brightness on her face that he had not seen there for a very, very long time. Whenever he asked what the 2 of them had been talking about, she would answer just a little too quickly. Silly things, troubles at his brother's work, nothing important at all. Tobias began to change as well. He no longer growled only at Ricardo when he came round. Now he growled at Daniel's own dinner plate. The suspicion came slowly, drop by drop. But once it had settled inside him, it never left him again. Daniel began to notice things he had once let slide without ever giving them a second thought. Julia's mobile phone always turned face down on the table. The messages she carefully deleted before turning out the light. The new perfume she had suddenly started wearing just to pop down to the supermarket. Ricardo's car parked quietly 2 streets down from the house. 3 afternoons running on the very same days he swore he was away in another city entirely. Daniel did not confront her. He did not raise his voice. He did not make a scene of any kind. He bought 3 small cameras, the very same kind he used at the clinic to monitor animals during their recovery. He fitted one in the sitting room, one in the hallway, and one in the guest bedroom, all carefully hidden in places that no one would ever think to look at twice. He told her he would be traveling away for a veterinary conference over the weekend. Julia kissed him softly at the front door, wished him a safe journey, and told him to get some proper rest. Daniel drove to a cheap roadside hotel 40 kilometers outside the city. He opened up his laptop, and then he waited. Ricardo arrived at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Julia opened the front door barefoot. There was no handshake, no proper greeting between brother and sister-in-law. There was her mouth on his mouth before the door had even fully closed behind him. There were his hands sliding up her waist like a man who already knew every single inch of that body by heart. Daniel sat completely motionless in front of the screen for very nearly an hour. He did not cry. He did not break a single thing. He simply watched, frame by frame, the entire life he had believed in crumble away in absolute silence. He noticed one strange detail. Before going up to the bedroom, Ricardo had opened the kitchen cupboard and had reached inside and touched something hidden in there. Daniel woke up early. He picked up his phone and called Julia in the most natural voice in the world, telling her he had won an award at the event and asking her to invite Ricardo over for a celebration dinner that very night. Julia happily accepted. Ricardo confirmed within minutes. Neither of them suspected a single thing. Daniel looked at the two of them and spoke calmly. I already know everything. I didn't want to believe it at first, but I installed cameras in the house and I've already sent the footage straight to the police. You can both stay seated because the patrol car is already at the door. Julia collapsed into tears. She begged for forgiveness. She said it had all been Ricardo's idea, that he had manipulated her, that she had only obeyed. The police came in. The two of them were handcuffed, still crying, still accusing each other, and dragged straight out of the house. Weeks later, in a sunny park, Daniel was tossing a yellow ball for Tobias to chase. The dog came running back, wagging his tail, alive, happy, whole. At that very same moment, on the other side of the city, Ricardo was huddled in the corner of a filthy cell, surrounded by thin, dirty men who looked like starving rats. Far away from there, Julia was sitting on the filthy floor of some random cell, in the middle of other women who had never truly understood the real value of freedom. 28 years go by quickly, but not for those who count every single one of them from behind iron bars.